Coil pots are pretty fun to make, honestly, provided that you don't rush through them and you take the time to do the detail work. To start off a coil pot, however, you are going to get a small amount of clay from me, and you're either going to put it through a slab roller or roll it out with the rolling pin that I gave you. But first you got to wedge it, as always. You're going to wedge it relatively flat, and then you're going to place your wooden slats on either side of it and roll your rolling pin across the slats, not just the clay. The rolling pin will run into the clay and keep it an even thickness that is the same thickness as those wooden slats. We need that evenness for this. If you have thinner edges, that is a problem. And then once you have that, you're going to take a Pringle lid and you're going to have the sharp edge up. This is not a cookie cutter, don't treat it like one. But you're just going to set it there and get a knife and cut out a round shape. And notice that I'm not doing this all the way around in one single go. I'm doing this in pieces, but you do need a straight edge all the way around. You don't want anything angled. Just a straight up and down side to that circled base. Now, once you have that, put the slats and the rolling pin away, and you are either going to hand roll your coils or use the coil gun that we have discussed in class. Looks like this. Once you have a coil rolled out, the longer the better, just for a better start. Now, ideally, your base should be on a plastic wrapped turntable for this part. Make sure that it is set up and ready to go. It will not be leaving that turntable for a very long time. But then you're going to take the end of your coil that you have prepped and you have to angle it. Just all the way down. Keep it at a pretty low angle because this will act as a ramp for the coil to stack on once we wrap around the other side of the base. And then you're going to set that angled side directly against the side of the base that you just cut. And this is what we build off of. And then you're just going to take your coil and gently set it on top of itself. Now, if you build your coil directly on top of the coil beneath it, you'll get a straight side. If you set that coil on the outside of the coil beneath it, you'll start to build outward a little bit. Take your time when putting this together. Look at it from all sorts of angles. Check it from the side. Check it from a top-down perspective. Turn your turntable. It's meant to turn. Make sure that it's going the way that it's supposed to. Make sure that it's even. Again, do not rush this project. I can't say that enough. A lot of people will hurry through it, and they will be very sorry. Now, once you have those coils stacked, however many you might have, you need to take a wooden tool or one of your molding tools and blend it all together. Now, notice that my hand is always on the outside of the vessel. This prevents it from getting out of shape. You should always, always, always have your hand on the outside of the vessel while the other one is smoothing out the inside. You just have to. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If you don't, it'll bend it out of shape, it will look ugly and lopsided, and that's no good. Once you've got a decent amount blended out, either that or an inch or two, you're going to take your flexible metal rib and use the curved side to smooth out the inside. The base will still be a little bit tricky. You won't be able to get that with the metal rib quite as much. You'll have to use a different tool or your finger for that. But the inside of this vessel should be perfectly smooth. No holes, no cracks, no nothing. One of the things I grade on with this project is how watertight it is. If I can look inside your pot and see a bunch of cracks and holes that leak out to the outside, that is a problem. Unless they're intentional, in which case go for it. But usually, no. Try to keep it airtight, smooth out that inside. So again, don't be too nice to it when you're blending the inside, but you can't be too mean about it either. And again, always, always have that hand on the outside of the vessel whenever you're smoothing out the inside. You just have to. At some point during this project, you do have to flip the coil pot over very carefully, and you have to do this before it dries, and remember that that canvas is sucking out moisture. And then you're just going to take a tool or your finger, whichever you prefer, and just gently smooth out that bottom coil into the base. You have to do this all the way around. If you don't, it'll be a weak point, and later that base might pop out like a cork. And we're just going to flip it back and we're good to go. Now, this coil pot can continue a myriad of ways, but overall, it's really up to you guys however you want to go about it. You guys have your sketches, you know how many patterns you need to have. You could do spirals, you could do spheres, you could do shapes. You could even have some negative space or holes in the side of it as long as you plan your coils carefully. What matters is that the coil pot stays upright. Do not build this too quickly. I recommend maybe 2 to 3 inches, maybe 4 a day, and then don't spray it. You need it to kind of harden up as you go along. The further you build up, the firmer the bottom part needs to be, otherwise it won't support the clay that you're adding to it, and you will come back to school one day to discover that your coil pot has collapsed in on itself like a dying star. You can also use metal tools to smooth out the spaces between the coils on the outside. The coil design should be visible on the outside. The inside is the only part that should be smooth. You can have small controlled spaces on your coil pot of smooth spots. That's fine as long as it's in your sketch. But overall, just the inside needs to be smooth and watertight. The most important thing to remember about this project is to constantly turn your turntable and look at this project from a lot of different angles. One side might look really pretty and another side might not look so pretty, in which case, go ahead and fix that. Take your time, smooth out what needs to be smoothed out. I don't want to see any cracks, I don't want to see any gaping holes, I don't want to see any major weak points. Keep your coil thickness as consistent as possible and blend well. The extra effort on this project really pays off.